question actually, Mr. Ngumi, has to do with SMEs, right? And in fact, when you're talking, I was just thinking about how when we were younger, the whole talk was go to school, work hard, get a job. But then lately, the story has been entrepreneurship. So you're seeing everyone going into entrepreneurship, which means, as you were saying, people follow what the leaders are saying. But the question here really is around the definition of an SME in Africa. The person is saying that we in Africa have adopted from the West, which seems to be out of scope in relations to Africa economy. So his question is, what in your view should be the ideal definition of an SME in Africa? So what is the ideal to say this is a small and medium enterprise in Africa? Because when you look at Africa versus what the rest of the world does, the definition is very different. So what is your thought around SMEs?
I don't know the answer, but I think I know where the questioner is coming from, because our definition of SMEs, what we, or rather our description, not definition, our description of SMEs, if you look at Europe, what we call SMEs here are tiny mom and pop affairs. A lot of our companies would not, in fact, probably with the exception of Safaricom and a couple of others, a lot of our companies would not fit into the definition of large enterprises in many other markets. So I think that that is really an example of the use of a term with people meaning very different things. So while I don't know the answer to what an SME should be here, that should be defined here, I certainly know that Kenyan SMEs are by no means global SMEs. They're tiny operations, and we'd better live with that.
Okay, thank you for that. So Sly had a question. Do you still want to ask your question?
Yes.
Sly?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, this is Sil. I think I just want to go back to John's previous engagement when he started in the public sector. And I think one of the things he mentioned that was really, really important and encouraging to hear about was that they really tried to put in place corporate governance standards to try and bring that entity from where it was at the time to where it is today. John, based on that experience, what are the 2 or 3 key things that you would tell those of us working in the private sector and engaging with public sector to really focus on in our businesses to maintain integrity?
Are you, by the way, very nice to talk to you. Sylvia and I once worked together at Stanbic. Are you speaking as a to the public sector, or are you speaking as somebody who would want to be in the public sector?
I'm speaking as someone who does not want to be in the public sector, but being in Kenya in business means dealing with the public sector, doing business with the public sector. So you have to really come to terms with the fact that that is part of business in Kenya.
Let me be politically incorrect. If you want to be an angel, if you want to be pristine, then accept that you will have a very, very, very tough time penetrating the public sector. It is, and it's not because the people are bad, but it is because the circumstances make it so that, you know, I don't want to go into the devil made me do it type argument. But really, the temptations placed upon people in responsible positions in the public sector are enormous. And therefore, it takes very strong characters, and there are strong characters, men and women. Don't think that there aren't good people in the public sector. I know they are, because we unearthed them in KPC. But again, to go back to the question that Michael raised, we unearthed them because they felt safe, that they could be honest because their leaders encouraged them and protect them in being honest. So getting back, if you're saying, should I do business with X, Y, or Z? Plenty of good companies do business with the public sector and maintain integrity. But it does mean that you have to have lots and lots and lots and lots of patience. You also have to be agile. You have to understand how business is done in that parastatal. You've got to know which buttons to squeeze to embarrass people or to scare people into thinking that if you can expose them as being corrupt and therefore to throw you away or to get rid of you, they will give you the business straight. Of straight business is done with parastatals. Unfortunately, a lot of the non-straight business is what makes the headline. I would throw the question straight back to private sector, because I am a hybrid between public and private, and say that a lot of times, and I know that I'll get boos for this, but a lot of times it is actually the desire and the hunger and the competition among the private sector players which place these temptations in front of public sector officials. So if you're asking how do you maintain integrity, I would say first and foremost and above all by as a private sector player practicing it. Have I said me answer?
Yes, you have. Thank you, John.
John, what are you saying? You mentioned that I kind of look dejected, like I had almost given up in this area. But all the answers you seem to point to the fact that we don't have much of a choice. If you want to stay on the straight and narrow, you will shy away from doing business with the public sector. That doesn't change the status quo then, does it?
But that's not what I said. I said that do business with the public sector with your eyes open and find ways of finding those pressure points or pain points or fear points or embarrassment points that will make people in public sector do business with you properly. I mean, the reality, and I know there's a large element of disbelief here. Public sector companies do a lot of honest business. When I left Kenya Pipeline, we were looking at an annual operating expenses budget, excluding projects, of around 4 or 5 billion shillings a year. That business, I will wager that the lady who supplies this or the young people who supply that, or I'll bet you that the chances are equally good that they either paid something or they did not. People do business. And I think this is where the media, doing its job, of course, have really driven this idea into our minds that you cannot do honest business with the Kenyan public sector. You can, and people do. It is a question of, if you believe you can't, and here I'll turn into a preacher. If you believe you can't, then you will do crooked business. If you believe you can, you will more often than not find a way.
Okay. Ricardo, are you there? Ricardo has a question, so I'll just read it out then. He says, Kenya is drowning in debt, both foreign and domestic. The hunger-starved local businesses of capital is their hope. And it basically looks like Kenya shouldn't be the one, the Kenya government shouldn't be the one getting money or borrowing money. Efforts should go towards empowering SMEs. Yeah, I see you laughing.
Let me start with a declaration.
Yeah.
That I am the Pied Piper who led us down that path. Not only was I an architect of the Treasury Board one of the three architects of the Treasury bond program as we know it today, but I arranged the first $600 million Euro loan, syndicated loan, and I arranged the infamous, according to some people, very colorfully described $2 billion Eurobond. So I raise my hand and say, guilty. But actually I'm not. Because the reason we encouraged the Kenya government to go offshore was precisely for the reason that your questioner has raised. It was to create room for banks in Kenya to lend to SMEs, to companies, to individuals, and not to rely only on lending to government. Again, I'll cast your minds back to 2003 when T-bills were Treasury bills were also beginning to range at about 10, 12, 14%. On the advice of some of us, and I also happen to have been in the forefront of that, even though I was a banker, I told this Minister for Finance at that time to reject Treasury bill bids. And within a month or thereabout, Treasury bill rates had fallen from 12 or 11 to less than 1. And banks, if you recall, were hawking loans in town and putting traditional dances and people walking on the streets, trying to persuade you to borrow whatever. So it can be done. The whole purpose of going offshore was to provide breathing room to Kenya to be able to devote the domestic resources to the private sector here. Now, Eurobonds and loans are not that tough to arrange, certainly not as tough as arranging IMF loans and World Bank loans and donor loans. And of course, we have overbinged. Yes, we have, and I think everybody accepts that. Have we done anything with that loan money? Yes, we know that things have been, overpriced or and so on. But I think we do have things we have put in place. I know the common whipping boy is the SGR, and SGR and Kenya Railways are part of the work we are currently doing under my chairmanship to try and improve our logistics. SGR will come right. I tell you, it will come right because throughput will increase. Hold this call a year from now, and I will prove you wrong in terms of the pessimism. But in the meantime, we took a gamble, and the gamble we took is that we could borrow and put down infrastructure and make that infrastructure work sufficiently quickly to be able to repay our loans. Now, that model worked on Thika Highway. How many know that Thika Highway was built on borrowed money? Do you ever hear of it? Do you ever hear of any people saying that this road is useless? No, because what did it do? It unlocked a whole economic front, on its side, all the way from Nairobi to Thika, and now going beyond. And basically from the tax and other economic contributions of the businesses and activities that have flourished along that corridor, it has paid for itself several times over, even though the loan is still there and we are still paying for it. No one worries about it because the investment is working. That is what we will do with the SGR and the other things that we have borrowed, but it will be up to us. We've got the investment. It may be expensive, but it is up to us. For heaven's sake, are we saying that we lack the ingenuity to at least make these investments work? Last month, the president launched the operationalization of Lamu Port, and he reminded Kenyans that we borrowed heavily to build Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Please go back to the press of those years. It was damning. President Kibaki was the Minister for Finance, and he had to defend JKIA all the time because it was only the old Embakasi airport had 50,000 passengers, and we were building an airport for 2.5 million passengers. By the time COVID came, we were having 7 million passengers, and JKIA was clearly not fit to take on any more, and we needed a new airport. So I accept that maybe we could have invested more wisely, but I don't accept that the infrastructure we have laid down will never pay for itself and will never be useful or productive. Now, how do we get from here to there, where our debt servicing becomes sustainable? Well, there are smart bankers, and I know there are quite a few in these the forum today. It can be done. We will have to be smart about the way we do it. But I have every confidence that we can rearrange our affairs, our debt, to make us cross this particular crocodile-infested river safely. So yes, we have a big debt. The debt is not unmanageable if we then try and make those investments work. And I suspect I've just seen Michael Hopkins with another question, and I suspect he violently objects to anything I've said, but there we are, happy to answer that one too.
Yeah, Michael objects to that, so we will not go to Michael now. Yes, he does. Dr. Beatrice, are you there? You had a question for John before we go back to Anne. Dr. Beatrice.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be able to ask my question. I'm in the healthcare line of work, and I was curious as to a banker or financier's view on the possibility that we could turn this pandemic and the negatives that it has presented our country with into a positive, in light of the fact that we perhaps have not suffered the brunt of it so severely as other parts of the world, and that we may therefore be able to count our benefits as well as our losses with a view to giving ourselves the opportunity to springboard into perhaps a better healthcare system service, or even the ability to look inward for solutions rather than continue to seek outward options. So perhaps your view overall on how to turn this pandemic into a positive would be the question. Thank you.
Let me answer that question in a couple of parts. Beatrice, I'll focus on health directly, and then on the wider economy. It sounds absolutely cruel to say this, but COVID is probably the best thing that happened in turning our policymakers' attention to the need to invest properly in healthcare. Because they can't fly to India or Israel or the UK or the US, or can only do so with great difficulty, they have suddenly realized the importance of having a health system that actually works for them as well as for Wanjiku. So that's a cruel thing to say, but I think it is a true thing to say. Number two is the whole question of affordability of healthcare. What to do with the NHIF? Again, the need to ensure that we are properly, our people can afford healthcare is one of the positive byproducts of COVID. Among my hats, that I wear is being chair of the board at CarePay Kenya. You've never heard of it, most people haven't, but they have heard of its brand name. It's called Mtiba. And what Mtiba today has 4.7 million people on its digital health wallet. It enables people to save and spend in a closed digital wallet that cannot be used for anything else, and is used especially in the poorer areas of Nairobi. It is the way that people pay for healthcare, and it links to NHIF. I think what COVID and its impact is doing is to encourage more and more people to come up with digital solutions to challenge M-Pesa. And by the way, M-Pesa Foundation is a shareholder in Mtiba, CarePay Kenya. So I think that those are the positives I see there. From a wider perspective, I see, if you look at the agreement we hammered out between private sector and the government on vaccines, which was hammered out through the agency of KEPSA, and I was part of the team that did that. One of the things that we said in there was that we would also look to developing a vaccine, a pharma industry in Kenya. Today, we have a good vaccine industry for animals, but we don't really have a good drug or pharmaceutical or vaccine sector for human beings. And the shortages, the fact that India blocked all exports to COVAX, which have hit us hard, have taught us that we need that capability. And I believe that there is active work happening on that front. On the wider front, what COVID has done is to show much of the world just how vulnerable it is in terms of supply chains. And I have spoken to umpteen investors who are looking to build resilience into their supply chains by building backups, by building factories and so on in Kenya, in East Africa. Kenya is ideally situated because we are at the western end of the fastest growing economic region in the world, the Asia Pacific region, and we are also the door to the population of Africa, of the Middle Africa, and to the riches, the natural resource riches of Middle Africa. So we are superlatively placed to exploit this, and that's why we have accelerated the operationalization of Lamu Port, of the SEZs and Mombasa, of making Kilindini a better harbor, of improving the Kisumu Malaba, the Kisumu Nakuru and Nakuru Malaba railways, because we are going to be caught up in a wave of activity, of economic activity, whether it is it's industries relocating, or whether it's lots of people wanting to do business here and so on. So again, that is really that push, that once in a lifetime push has come out of the COVID pandemic and the disruption to supply chains and the alarm by global and international players about their vulnerability to China as a manufacturing base. Have I answered your question?
Absolutely, thank you very much.
And shall we go to some of your questions?
Yeah, so the next question is a bit interesting here because Mr. Ngumi, you've talked about the pandemic has brought opportunities, but it seems like from these two questions, the opportunities are to foreigners and not Kenyans. So the question here is, many civil engineering works have been given to Chinese companies. Is there hope that Kenyan companies can compete? Is there need for some affirmative action to help Kenyan companies compete? So yes, the opportunities, you're talking about Lamu, you're talking about SGR, but all the opportunities are going to foreigners. So what is your thought about that? And then on the flip side, there is a question saying, when people are looking at businesses, especially IT, you've seen that all the founders are foreigners. They're not Kenyans in these industries. So what do you have to say about us as Kenyans taking up these opportunities that have been brought about by the pandemic, that have been brought about by Africa Rising? What are your thoughts around that?
Let me attempt to answer those questions. Number one, on the lack of opportunities for African professionals, I assume that this question is really directed at the lack of opportunities in the public sector. Is that where it's coming from? That the big projects are public sector projects, and why aren't Kenyan civil engineers and contractors and others involved? Well, I will be blunt. Couple of things. Number one, because we have become used to taking the easy way, because we have become used to shoddy work, and we're happy with that shoddy work. I remember when my children were in Turi, we used to drive up there every 2 or 3 weeks, and I recall wondering, there was a road between Nakuru Eldoret Road, past when you took the turn off to Njoro and then Obago. That road was permanently under repair every single year. Repair, rains, goes off, repaired, rains, and the answer why it was permanently under repair was quite obvious. Everybody cut corners. They put up insufficient staff, everybody will take, and it merely meant that there was business for people all the time. So let's be brutally honest. We also have to up our game. I work in Westlands and I am suffering the horrors of the expressway being built. But I also have to admire the speed at which it's being built. Those of us who used to drive to Mount Kenya Safari Club and the Nyuki and whatever, and Laikipia regularly, we will recall how long did it take to build that road? 10 years? Local contractors? Come on. Look, the public sector law has a provision for 40% of works to be given to local players. It's there. How many insist on it? I don't know. But the reality is that our people have let us down. Now, hopefully, because I'm an optimist, we have watched the Chinese and others take everything and have said, oops, we'd better get in on the act. And we will get to places. We've also done errors. I think that if I look at the SGR, the rail was very important. Michael Hawkins, I've seen your comments coming through. Yes, the rail was very important. And I think we missed a trick. We missed a trick there in terms of cement supplies. We missed a trick in terms of expanding our steel industry to build rail. We missed a trick in terms of perhaps thinking of electrifying the railway and therefore using more power. Yeah. It happened. Can we retrace? No. But can we do better? Yes. We know we can. Now, I know that behind the spirit of that question is that Kenyan officials are bribed to give all these contracts to foreigners. Maybe. But I've just given you examples of where we've done horrifically wrong. And I speak as one who is a champion of Africans getting things done. And I hope, and I have worked with African professionals in all fields to know that we are capable of doing better. Michael Joseph, when we were working on funding Safaricom, Michael Joseph used to tell me, and it is something that is ingrained in my mind, to use that word again, that he built Safaricom largely with the same people from Telecom Kenya. The same people we used to as corrupt, inefficient. We had 200, 300,000 lines and done. We had this, we had that. Those same people are the ones who, those same Kenyans are the ones who have built us a Safaricom. In the same vein, I am absolutely confident, and I've worked with fantastic engineers. Today, I would place, for example, and I will name him, Engineer James Mwangi of Current Technologies, on a par with anybody in the world when it comes to petroleum engineering. And I know there are very many others of that kind, and I hope that they get jobs, and I hope that people like me who are in positions of giving jobs to such will push and give jobs to them. But it doesn't negate my argument that too many of us have also taken the easy way out. Secondly, IT founders, and this is a debate which was raging in a major KEPSA the website the other day. KEPSA, WhatsApp, a platform the other day. What's the reality? It is a very simple reality. Pay the piper, play the tune. Where is this risk capital coming from? Who is putting up angel capital, venture capital, PE capital? All these billionaires we have in Kenya, why aren't they doing so? So if you're a billionaire in California, are you going to give it to some Kenyan you have never heard of? Or are you going to give it to a young American? You'll say, oh, M-Pesa came from Kenya. That place clearly is a digital paradise, is a tech paradise. Here, young man, go out there, try and make some sense of it. That is a reality. Now, unfortunately, we have, just like, and I will veer to a controversial topic, just like women have had to work harder to demonstrate that they can do it, our tech entrepreneurs will just have to work that much harder. It is frustrating that they don't have the capital or time to scour the world for capital, but the reality is that we are the beggars and the money is not here, or rather the money is here, but it's building rural homes in Kenya rather than being engaged in productive investment. Sorry, I have very strong views about this. I don't blame an American or a European or a Japanese or a Chinese billionaire for giving cash to their own. Why should I? Where are our billionaires? Sorry, I had to go on a rant.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
So we'll come back to that, and maybe we switch gears a little bit and back to.
Irene, could I just say something real quick? Because I think there was something that he said that ties to one last question. Then I'll give it to you. Okay, thank you very much. You know, Mr. Ngumi, you talked about Kenyans and showed you work, and I felt pain because I think there are many Kenyans who do great work, and especially Kenyans from their diaspora who's come back with global experience. So it pained me to hear that, but I do hear what you're saying because there are people who've gotten jobs and they haven't done that. But on the same token, the question I really wanted you to answer, that's why I asked Irene, if someone here, there's a gentleman who has a question. I don't know if it's a gentleman, it just says ZK and everything. But this is the question, they're in business and they're saying, in Kenya, there are too many regulations coming up, right? So from beekeeping to potato growers to people in the villages, basically they're saying the Kenyan government is putting too many regulations. And so the question is, what happens to the Kenyan who wants to survive? So
Okay.
the question, I mean, are we saying that we want less regulation in business? Does that tie to shoddy work? What do you think this has to do with everything?
I am reaching out to my phone for a reason. This was a major topic in this KEPSA platform today. And it came about because of some regulations which have come in on potatoes, I think, today or whatever.
Yeah, Irish potatoes, yes.
And my answer, I will read my answer as my answer to you. I told KEPSA to stop griping, make a list of all the regulations we have come up with in the last 10 or so years for all sectors, for corporates, for SMEs. Number two, quantify the impact of these regulations in terms of additional cost, in terms of lost investment, lost jobs, lost tax revenue, and set that against whatever return these regulations have brought. Three, mount a heck of a campaign and let a campaign to demonstrate that these regulations are a business killer. So the answer to my question to you is, to your question from me is, yes, there are too many. Why are they doing that? We've had a long debate on that. Is it government officials? The answer, I'm afraid, is seated in this very forum and other forums like this. These regulations don't come from Mars. They come from people in the Kenya private sector, especially, who for one reason or another want to regulate something or other in order to benefit them in some way or other. And the excuses used are always the same: health, food safety, this, that, the other. And if I'm a bureaucrat sitting in some regulator, of course my job is to generate regulations, and I'm perfectly happy to have allies out there who are helping me to come up with, or rather who are suggesting to me and helping me come up with a myriad of regulations. I remember Ronald Reagan, when he became president, had a pretty radical solution to the proliferation of regulations, which was for every new regulation you come up with, show me two that you are going to kill. We do have too many. Everybody thinks they are part of a nanny state which must tell us what to do. They are not alone. Private sector players are. Maybe they want to protect their particular turfs, or maybe they have other more nefarious reasons. So the answer to your question is yes, and we are going to die if we of strangulation by regulations, if the likes of KEPSA don't get a grip and start working on demonstrating just how dreadful these damn things are.